Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 4. And we'll just give it another minute to a few more participants that are looking to join. So just bear with us for another minute. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. We're gonna let people join as they're coming in. But let me start this session off by just saying, welcome to Southeast PA PTAC Day 4 of the Government Procurement Readiness Series. For those of you who are not aware, PTAC is a procurement technical assistance center, and our mission is to assist businesses in learning how to be successful selling to government agencies, whether it's a federal, state, or local, through seminars like this one or one-on-one counseling. We are funded by a cooperative agreement with the Defense Logistics Agency, and all of our services are free of charge. There are more than 300 locations nationwide, and our Southeast PA office serves the following counties: Berks, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton, and Philadelphia counties. My name is Natasha Borchanin. I am the program manager and government marketing specialist, and I'd like to initiate the first in this week's series where we will discuss SAM.gov registration. I knew probably some of you are either embarking on this SAM.gov registration or are in the midst of it, but our guide through this session today is my colleague and government marketing specialist, Bruce Downing. Bruce has over 30 years of experience in business and education and has served as an executive in a number of IT companies. He utilizes his experience started for businesses in the IT sector, all of which obtained government contracts. We are lucky to have Bruce as a part of our team to help support small businesses with their government procurement journey. If you have any questions, I do encourage you to put them in the chat. In the previous 3 sessions, we had time to answer them all, and I anticipate to be the same today. But enter them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as we complete the presentation. So it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Bruce. And Bruce, you can take it over from here.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to be talking about SAM today and take you through at least a top level view of the process. You're going to have to go through kinds of things you will need to have at your disposal to go through this. Let me just make a preamble warning here. If you're not already aware, SAM changed earlier this year over from one system provider to another. I won't go into all of the technical details on it, but they have had no end of problems with SAM. So the challenge for you is quite often things don't work right, and you're not quite sure whether it's because you didn't put something in correctly or the system is screwing up. So again, this is a good reason to make sure that you are contacting your PTAC counselor to help you with this if you have any problems. But what we're going to be covering today is what the thing is supposed to do, and I will point out areas that you need to look out for that haven't been working quite right. So SAM is the System for Award Management. And the System for Award Management is the new platform that they introduced a few years back to try to integrate a lot of the different kind of registrations for new companies coming on board. And so that's what this is all about. But we are going to talk about how to use the SAM website, how to register with SAM. And then there's also in SAM what they call federal business opportunities. So those are opportunities to bid on new contracts. Is SAM registration free? Yes. And you should not be paying anybody to register on SAM. So if you get those emails that say, we can help you with this, or it looks like it's SAM, but it's not really, then, you need to get out of that, because they'll start asking you for credit cards and that sort of thing. So make sure that when you go in, you are really on the SAM.gov site, because if you just Google SAM.gov, take a careful look, because some people pay for top spot in the Google responses, and those particular companies that try to get your money for this are often the ones that you will see first. So be careful and make sure you're really going into SAM.gov.
Mhm.
And in order to,
And just really quickly, Bruce, usually a good indicator is the extension. If it reads .com, it is not a government website.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. So who should register? Well, any business or individual that wishes to do business with the federal government. Now, also, businesses that want to get federal grants or federal financial assistance through grants.gov have to be registered there. And we'll see that actually the other group of people that register on SAM are federal agencies themselves. Because everybody that uses SAM, whether they're an agency or a vendor, everybody needs to be registered and get what we call the CAGE code. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating an account in login.gov. Now, login.gov is a fairly new system. And what they try to do here is to get you to establish a user ID and a password in login.gov that you can use across many different government sites. So as we talk to you about accessing various government resources, research sites, et cetera, many of them now use your login.gov credentials. So you will be creating an account either by going directly into login, or there is a way through when you go into start up with SAM, they also will take you over there to login.gov to create your credentials if you don't have them. So creating an account in logon.gov is the first thing. Then the second step is you're going to validate your entity. Now that's a separate step that they have introduced that lets you then register that entity once it's validated. And to become completely registered, the final result is that CAGE code is issued to you. So you may get, when you validate your entity, you will get a user entity ID number that is the entity indicator. But then when you get fully registered, you'll get this CAGE code. So once you have a valid SAM account, you'll then also be able to search for business opportunities. Okay, so here are the things you need to know before you register. Obviously, your business needs to be registered in the state where you're incorporated. Now, this is not, the same registration as if you want to do business in a state. This is actually where if you're an LLC, you go into this Department of State and register your business, or whether it's sub S or a corporation, whatever your business form is, because you are registering your business entity to be able to legally do government contracting. So this is your business that you are registering. So you have to have your tax ID number or employee ID number. That is from the IRS. We strongly recommend that you go ahead for your business and get with the IRS your employee ID number. The only other tax ID number that can be used is your Social Security account, and you don't want to use that. So you need to get an EIN with the IRS for your business. You need to open a business bank account because they're going to be asking you for your banking information. In the system for award management, the reason it's called award management is because if you're awarded a contract, they will have the information to transfer money when you get paid into your bank account. You need to have your NAICS codes. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. It is really important that you keep records of everything you're doing. So again, make sure you write down and keep your login.gov credentials, because whoever does this first for you is going to be the account administrative person. You want to have somebody who's going to be in the company for a while, be the account administrator. So whoever does the registration automatically becomes the account administrator. Now that administrator can assign different roles for people who need to access SAM, but it's really important to know what the account administrator's login ID and password are. Some people just maybe slough this off to an assistant or something and say, oh, go get us registered there. That person leaves and nobody has a clue as to what is needed to get in there. So you also need to keep your entries and records consistent, particularly with matching addresses. And we'll see in a little bit here, the address that you use with the IRS to get your EIN, the address of your company in the state registration, and the address that you're putting into SAM all have to match. If there's any differences in company name or address, then there's going to be a problem. So you need to prepare all of this information and record this and get a record of this. You can use a worksheet or whatever to collect all of this. And as we say, it takes about 30 minutes to enter the information. So again, just to emphasize, all of your information must exactly match your IRS and state documents. Your physical business address cannot be a post office box. You will run into a problem there. Now, a lot of people say, well, I'm operating out of my house, but I don't want to put my home in there as my address. Well, then you need another valid business address. Now, some people will go to one of these incubators or just get a little space in a place and they call that their address. That's not going to work unless you have an actual contractual lease with the landlord of that particular office, saying that you are actually have a business physically located there. So the only thing you can do is, if you're not ready to step up to a business address outside of your home, then you need to put your home in as your address. Now, most of this stuff is going to be kept confidential, a lot of it, but it's important, therefore, really not to have your physical address in there, okay, as a PO box. Okay, the checklist then. When you go in to SAM,
Bruce, can we just pause for a moment? There's a question for everyone's benefit that relates to the PO box. What if you have a suite number? Does it get rejected?
Well, if you have a suite number that you have an actual lease on, that's fine. I mean, and a lot of times what you'll see is, you'll be in an industrial park. It all has pretty much the same address, but it's a suite number, and that's okay.
And just to piggyback on that, some of the locations, they have virtual mailboxes, and we have a slide with an updated language on SAM.gov coming up. But some of the virtual mailboxes provided by conglomerates like Staples indicate that it's a suite number, but it is still a virtual mailbox, and that may not be validated as a location for the physical location for the business.
Right. So again, when you get on the SAM, there's going to be an entity registration checklist, and this essentially what they're doing is they're going against a database of companies that are registered in a state. If you say you're in Pennsylvania, they'll look at those records, et cetera, and then they will issue you this unique ID number. But again, when you go in, I strongly recommend that when you see the purpose of registration, which is one of the first things you'll be looking at, make sure you say all awards. Don't say, federal assistance. That's other stuff for nonprofits, etc. So when you first go into SAM, you need to sign in. It's upper right-hand corner. So when you sign in, it's going to ask for your login.gov credentials if you go through and get those first. If not, there will be the opportunity for them to take you to login.gov to get those credentials. So it is using login.gov, as I said, and you want to put in your email address and you're going to put in a password. So this is what the credentials are that login.gov uses, and several systems, including SAM, can see these. So the first thing you're going to do, as I said, is you're going to create a record for your entity and validate your entity. So where you go is get started. Now, again, notice that up here, what do I need for registration? That takes you to that list of things. Okay, so once you've been into SAM and you need to change it or renew it or do anything like that, you're going to come in here and say renew and update. But to get started, you click on the Get Started button. And as I said before, you'll see things like register financial assistance, register for all awards, get unique ID only. No, you want to say register for all awards. You will be getting your unique ID as part of that. Okay, then again, on this page, there's a guide to all this registration. You can download that. Okay. We also have the guide that, if you work with your consultant, we can send you the guide. It says, are you registering a government entity? No, you are a commercial entity. But as I said before, government entities have to register here too. So it's asking then for what kind of entity type are you? Your business or organization? And a lot of times the terminology is a corporation. So even if you're an LLC and you are not a full type C corporation, you are still a corporation in the SAM system there. So then you want to also make sure the purchase of registration is all awards. Okay, so then you need to prepare all of your data. And again, here's the screen that it says, what do I need for registration? We went through all of that stuff before. You're going to then go ahead and put in your legal business name. Again, that needs to be the same name exactly as you signed up in the state. And again, you're going to be putting in your physical address. It's going to ask you for your zip code +4. A lot of people don't know what their +4 is, but here's a zip code lookup tool that you can use to find that. So again, that's one of the things maybe you want to look up before you try to do this, your zip +4. Okay, now what it's going to do once you've started entering that stuff, it's going to give you the choice of saying, so it says you entered this information, and there's an option here, 3 options. So the first option is, and I know this is a little difficult to read, it's going to come up and give you a company name and all. And if it's all correct, if what it shows you is correct, then you say my entity is listed and all details are correct. Now, one of the problems they are having is in validating entities. It's not clear to any of us at this point, what databases they're using to validate that you have, all of your information is out there and correct. But so if it's not listed, so then you'd click on my entity is not listed, or the entity is listed, but some details are incorrect. So you want to make sure that everything fits, and it will show your legal business name, your physical address, and if there's any DBA names, this is doing business as names, it would be there too. So once you enter all of this in, it will come back and say, okay, this is what we see. But your exact entity is not there or it is there. So if it is there, go ahead and choose my entity is listed and is correct. Otherwise, you're going to have to say it's not listed or it's not listed and details are incorrect. So if the entity does not come up, if they don't find it in trying to validate your entity so that there's no match, and this is something that's happening quite a bit, because I mean, even though people have registered correctly, they put the information correctly in, and again, we don't know why. We've tried to find out what's going wrong in the background there, that they're not finding entity information. So if that happens, if there's no match, you need to go in here and create an incident. That is a report back to them. And so you put in the legal business name, your address again, and submit an incident. So once you create an incident, it's going to say, okay, what we need to do is get some documents from you about your company that is going to allow us to validate that you have a legal entity. And so they have here a link that says view the list of acceptable documents and file types. So you're going to be submitting some documents to them to validate that you have a legal entity. And here are some of the things that you can use as acceptable documents. Now, generally, things like, certified copies here, or, operating agreements, those sorts of things you can enter in. But the most important thing is that if you, let's say if you're an LLC, they will issue you your certificate of organization or certificate of formation in the state. So whatever the certificates are that the state gives you, and of course it will have your entity number on it for the state, that's acceptable. Those are the things that are acceptable. Also, there are other things that you could submit, operating agreements if you have those already, or non-expired driver's licenses if it's not recognizing you or something. But basically, what you want to be able to do is, and they will have directions when you see this, but basically when you say certified copies, you should have had a actual file and a copy of your certificate of organization as an LLC, or certificate of formation of a C Corp or an S Corp. So, and also you would have articles of organization or incorporation if you're an Inc. So those are the things that you can use to show that you really are an entity under the name you've been trying to establish. So the entity type, anything with legal business name on it, and the state and the date of incorporations. You can, if you're not incorporated, you can have other documents, and that would be, for example, as I said, the articles of formation, or forming of an LLC. So again, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to have to submit those documents as an incident. Now, if you run into a problem because they're really kind of slow at getting the validations done, unfortunately, if they're not finding you right away. So what you need to do then is to, if it's holding up the award of a contract, if you're already, trying to do business with the government, you're going to get a contract, but you need that entity registration and all of that stuff to get the award made, and you've submitted an incident which says, please look at this and, get my entity validated. If that's not happening in a timely fashion, get in touch with your counselor, because we may have a way of helping you move that forward, but only if it's keeping you from actually getting a contract. But once you have your entity ID, that is the first step we said that you complete. Then you can go back to register your entity here. And again, once you get the unique ID, it's going to recognize your entity when you go in and try to register. So you go back into this screen and go to Get Started again. Then it's going to ask you for information on the entity you're looking for. And if it comes up with the entity and it's there and it's validated, then you can go on with the rest of your SAM registration. But again, you're not completely registered in SAM until you get the unique ID and then complete the rest of the registration. So you will need at least one NAICS code to complete the SAM registration. So, you need to look up the one that best matches what you do. And just giving you an idea here is that the SBA has established small business size standards, so that by the NAICS code that you say is your primary code, it will determine whether you are or are not a small business. Now, if you're a service company, you will be a small business if you have revenues below a certain amount. And that's what the size table from the SBA will tell you. So one of the places to go is the NAICS code, find your best NAICS code, and then you'll see what the size standard is. So as for services, it's the average revenue in the last 3 years. For products that you're offering, if you're a manufacturer of products, it's the number of employees. And it's really not hard to be a small business given their size standards. The group that actually has the full complete list of NAICS tools is the Census Department. So census.gov NAICS is one place you can search by putting in something like general contractor. It will give you then a list of NAICS codes that might apply to that. So again, the NAICS code can be found there. There's also a system called Federal Procurement Data System. You can find some what the NAICS codes might be based on past contracts that have been let, if you're not sure what the NAICS code is for your kind of business. But you're going to get kind of lost in that one. So we really recommend that you either go to the SBA site or go to the NAICS tool in the Census Department. I usually send people to the census.gov site because it's easier to search for them. Okay, recognize you can't see any of these things here. It's too small. But basically what we're saying is once your entity is validated, you go through that same process. So you're going to go here and you have a valid entity, you're going to get started, and then it's going to take you through a whole list of things to recognize the information. So when you put in your address again, when you go back here and say get started, it will take you through some screens, and then putting your entity name and all of that, it should see a match then. And that's when you select your company match, and continue with your registration. So these screens are just, you follow through, and you will see once you put in some basic information, it should then show what entity has been validated, and select that company and go on with the registration. All right. Now, there is a thing called the search engine, the SBA profile information. It's the dynamic small business search. What this is once you get your registration completed, it'll automatically set up a record for you in this database. So it's a database of all registered small businesses. And of course, you're a small business by the NAICS code size standard. And so that's all automatic when you get your SAM registration done. But this is a place where you can add additional information as to you used to be able to, could take you over to your record, and you can add additional information. However, last we checked, this button is not active now. So once you get through and your registration is all completed and you're satisfied with it, I would say get with your counselor, because now the process is that there is an SBA site called the General Login System. And that general login system has the ability to, you can select that you want to go directly into your SBA DSBS profile. But that gets a little complicated. I'm not going to cover it today, but just be aware that if you go in here and all of this is done, and you come down here and you say, oh yeah, I'll enter my profile here. If you click on that, it tells you it's not active, then you're going to have to get your counselor, and we'll show you how to get it through that general login system. Okay. Now, once you have registered and you sign in, you can select these domains. So, you go to what we call the workspace. You put in a search request, and then it says, okay, what do you want to search for? So again, if you wanted to find your entity information, see what it looks like, or you want to find some other entity. So let's say you're going to try to do subcontracting with another company, and you want to get their entity information, get, particularly things like points of contact that you can use. Well, you'd go down here to entity information. But if you want to search for opportunities, you're going to search the contract opportunities domain. That takes you to an area. And again, we can't go into it in detail today, but we can certainly take you through how this works, at a later stage once you get all signed up. So contract opportunities, that is solicitations, are going to be showing up here when you search for them. And you can search by NAICS codes and all sorts of other things. And again, that's part of what we will teach you about how to do, when you get into developing your marketing plan. And of course, tomorrow we're going to be talking about, the basics of that. Okay, so that is a quick run through. I know there's a lot of information there, a lot of points of potential gotcha, but it's going to be a direct, straightforward process.
Thank you, Bruce, very much. There are some questions that have been incoming as the presentation was going on. One of our colleagues, Angie, pointed out regarding a suite number that she did have a company that was registered as a suite within a code.
Hello, yes, I'm in the middle of a Zoom session.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, are you on the call?
So yes, sorry about that interruption. Just really good. So I just wanted to reiterate what Angie has shared with us. Angie, why don't you share yourself? That'll be the best. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I had a client who was at an industrial place and they had a suite number. And one of the things that came back, I had another client where nothing came back. So this, I guess, depends on who's reviewing it. It came back saying these other businesses are listed there. Do they have any relevance to you? We actually ended up calling them and pointing this out that no, that's what actual location is. So sometimes they do question that, sometimes they don't. The other thing that we found is your name really does have to be exact. I mean, if there's a comma there, there needs to be a comma there. One other thing I noticed that some of my clients are getting tripped up on is that when they're on the IRS consent page, they put in the taxpayer name and they put their name in. And what we discovered is, you're filling this out as if you're the business, because later it asks you who's the responsible party, and that's where your name would go in. So I'm just noticing these little things that we have to clear up and fix up that you may or may not have. That's why it's so important if you do contact a PTAC counselor that they can look at it and walk through it. I did see a comment in here. Our particular PTAC is Pennsylvania, but there are PTACs all over the country.
Yes, I can certainly put a link where you can locate your local PTAC in a chat. I will do that at the end of the session to help you locate yours. Okay, thank you, Angie. Another question that we have is, will Bruce cover what to do if you have a problem getting into SAM?
Yeah, well,
Loaded question.
Excuse me for that little interlude there. Yes, well, my advice was, yeah, we need to know the specifics of what the problem is, how far you've gotten in it. And again, that's for your counselor, talk to your counselor, because we can actually set up a Zoom session with you such as this, and you can share your screen and show us what's going on, and we can help you with that. So
what is very important is to really keep track of email correspondences you do get from SAM, indicating exactly what incident number this is being referred to and what the problem is. Now, be on a lookout for these emails. Sometimes they look like spam, but they're not. So they may say GSA or some GSA or other things that you don't recognize in that email. But please keep track of and record of those, because the best way we can address those if we see the particulars of that incident. Okay, and Deborah said at one time they used the DUNS information. That is correct, Deborah. If as our previous sessions from yesterday in particular, UEI number has replaced DUNS number. So it is no longer being issued. It is being given as a UEI number. However, if you have previously registered and you have DUNS information, it is still being used in some of the databases. We know that SBA is still currently using DUNS information during this transition process, at least. Okay, Karen, I was told that government pays invoices by the government credit card, not bank deposits. Karen, from my understanding, and Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, it's for SAM.gov purposes, you will need to enter bank registration. Now, there are certain thresholds that apply to different solicitations. And if the threshold allows for for that service or product to be paid by a government credit card, you can be paid that way. Is that correct, Bruce?
Yes, but remember too, government credit cards have limits just like our credit cards do. And generally speaking, they're going to be paying invoices that maybe were not based upon competition. So if somebody wants to give you a small job and use a credit card, they can do that. But most credit cards that government people have, have a max of about $3,000 to $5,000. So it'd only be small jobs. So when you register your bank accounts, they're going to ask you also for the clearance information, clearance contacts. That is, whenever a transfer is made, that funds transfer has to have attached to it who do you contact if it goes wrong. So again, we can talk to you about that and how that all works, but in many cases, for particularly when you win a bid and you go through the compliance of the contract, you get the contract finished, or you're in process and getting process payments, they will generally go ahead and transfer it to your bank account. So you need to make sure that that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So I see that Marianne had additional questions relative to her particular case. So Marianne, I do encourage you, feel free to email me as well, or if you know your counselor is, and then we can look at the SAM registration particulars. I know that it is difficult, and I feel like it's often a moving target as they change regulations and process every day, but we are certainly happy to assist you with your particular case. All right, so we have another one. One of our colleagues, Irene, pointed out that if you don't list the NAICS codes in your profile, it does not mean you cannot submit for a particular opportunity. So thank you for pointing that out, Irene. So NAICS codes is just for the initial registration. We do encourage you to enter all the applicable NAICS codes, as it will make you more discoverable in a system for that particular product or service. But yes, this is correct. You may find a solicitation that you want to go after, and it does not limit you. That code that you enter does not limit you to pursue that opportunity. Would you like anything to add, Irene? Did I cover that correctly?
Yeah, I just, a lot of people will go out as Bruce said, looking for opportunities. The NAICS code that is proposed in the opportunity is up to the discretion of the contracting office. So some people sometimes ask, well, why did they put this code and not this code? And it's based on the nature of the procurement that they're being offered. So it should be based on the most of the services that they're requesting. So even if you're, say, a janitorial contract and you've registered as a janitorial contract, but the opportunity goes out for maybe sanitation, you still can propose on that opportunity. That's why when Bruce will go over looking for opportunities, you have to look at multiple codes or descriptions because you might miss something. They have the contracting offices, it's up to their discretion. So it's not an even one-time fits all solution. Thank you.
And Irene, since you have the mic, do you want to piggyback on your comment to everyone regarding FAR questions?
Oh, okay. So as you go through the registration, as Bruce mentioned, you get through the banking and all that information. Then they have a section called representatives and certifications, which the government is looking and evaluating you on these questions you ask. So these questions are based on the Federal Acquisition Register, acronym FAR. And sometimes you might not understand what they're asking for those questions. So it's a good idea to get your counselor as you're going through that process. We can also send you a guide ahead of time with those questions so you can answer them correctly.
Okay, thank you, Irene. And Karen, is PTAC only for Pennsylvania-based businesses? Just to let you know, there are 300 PTAC offices nationwide, and they are designated by a zone. So you might have noticed in the chat, I have put APTAC website where you can locate your particular office. Thank you. I see we have two hands raised. So Marion, did you want to ask the question?
Yes. Thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
It's really based on the chat that I had sent or the text.
Okay, got it.
Bruce, you had stated that both of the names have to be consistent. When I registered with the state, my company starts with the word the, but with IRS, they deleted that word. So in the system, I had signed up with SAM, and they weren't able to find the entity. I got assistance, and then they had sent the same information that IRS has, the name wise, and I had entered all that information incorrectly, but it still came up as a problem. So with it being with the state, and it's just starting and it's deleted with the IRS, is that the problem? That is.
Yeah, well, you know, the way it had been working, and I want to preface it with that, because we have not been able to actually get a discussion with anybody in GSA or that handles the SAM process to understand exactly how they're doing all of this. But having said that, the process generally before, and I think it's the same, is that once you get a valid user ID, then to issue the cage code to you, it goes to another unit. And that other unit then will compare your IRS information with the information in, you know, when the unique ID is put out there. And if there is a mismatch, then they'll try to resolve that with you before they'll issue cage code. So my understanding is that probably if that is a small difference with the IRS, that's not the reason for the entity validation not working. But I may be wrong on that. As I said, I am not, you know, it used to be that once you get a DUNS number and now the UEI, and then it would go to check with IRS. If that's still the case, then the IRS would not be the holdup. So the only thing you could do right now is create an incident and send them the documents.
Okay, which I did that initially. You know, I sent my EIN form. So that's why they had resent, well, they sent me an email stating to re-enter the information or the name of my company the way IRS has it. And once again, I'm thinking because the word the isn't connected to it, and the state has that may be a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, well, try it without the and see if it goes through. If not, get back in touch with us and we'll see if we can decipher how to go ahead. But it's probably going to take an incident that, you know, sends in your articles of incorporation or your, you know, your formation of an LLC. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, generally they do like all the documents to mirror each other, you know, to be exact in spelling, exact in commas, punctuations, and everything like that. But if you create an incident, they may find a way to approve it without that being exact match. Angie, did you have something else you wanted to add for the benefit of the group?
Yes, I have a question for tomorrow's class. You were talking about the DSBS. will you be going into detail with that? The reason why I'm asking is I have a client who they're all done with the registration in SAM. It's good. I recommended to them to go into their SBA profile and make any adjustments because we've noted that there were several things that he needed to adjust. We went to login.gov, created the login, and now his company isn't connected. So I was just wondering, is that some of the things that you will be covering tomorrow? Because I'm definitely recommending him to hop on the call.
We won't probably go into that level of detail. But again, the situation now to get into the DSBS is you've got to go through the general login system. And that's about a 3-part process. You go in and you register on the GLS system, and then you request access to the DSBS information. And then they will send you an approval. You use the information they send in the approval to then go back on the GLS system and find the record to update it. So it's kind of messy, but that's, the final way to get that information changed is through the GLS.
Okay, because he did request to gain access. It looked kind of weird. So I just wondered if you were going to cover that tomorrow.
I'll only cover it superficially. I'm not going to go into any detail on it. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, we can look at it, Angie, for this client's benefit. One thing I wanted to point out, we had a client a couple of days ago, it's Angie's client, that incident was submitted. They responded back indicating what needs to be corrected. On that same day, the client went in to correct the information. However, the system has not done their due diligence to open up those fields that needed to be corrected. So when we reached out to SAM.gov customer service, they indicated just to give it a couple of days. So if it doesn't work on that day, give it a couple of days to go back in there and correct the information. Am I correct, Angie?
Yes, that is correct. Because when the assistant from SAM.gov, which was extremely helpful, started reading some question and answers, and she said that especially with the IRS consent, that they ask for 72 hours until they can unlock it. They just have their system they have to go through, and it's a process electronically. So yeah, we were just trying too quickly to make adjustments because she's just so excited to get this done. This is like our last piece. So when you do get information like that, you may want to give it a little bit of time, take the time to gather what you need, and then go from there. So yes.
Yeah, so just even though it's not indicated in the email that they need 72 hours, it might not be a good idea to create another incident, right? So, because that may just complicate matters mostly. But as Bruce pointed out at the very beginning, every day we learn something new about internal changes that they're going as they relate to system. Any other questions that anyone may have?
I do have one quick question for Bruce and Natasha. I know that SAM.gov does not utilize the DUNS number any longer. Do you recommend that clients still get that for other purposes?
Only if they want, only if they want to do business credit reporting through Dun & Bradstreet. That's the only reason it would be good now. It's not, it's not very useful for the purpose of government contracting.
Yeah.
But having said that, all of the agencies and sub-agencies are supposed to now be using the UEI, for identifier and all of that. In fact, because of the problems with UEI, there was a notice put out that government contractors could proceed with contract actions using the UEI for a grace period of time to get the final registration and cage code done. So a lot of agencies are using it, and they're all supposed to be using it. But within the SAM system, there's really no great need for the DUNS number.
We do have one question from Joanne Brooks. Where can I find about contractors needed to be COVID vaccinated? Is that true? I do janitorial work. This is not necessarily pertains to SAM, but I think every entity kind of has their own regulations. For example, from my experience at working at Philadelphia International Airport, that government contract did require us and did require a subcontractor, and it's deemed to be vaccinated with the legally allowed exceptions. So I don't know if anyone has any other feedback, but I think it will vary from agency to agency.
Yeah, I don't know of any general database that keeps up to date on that stuff. So you'd really have to get in touch with the customer, find out what their rules are.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, I really do appreciate everyone's time. I did put in a chat information how you can reach out to us, and we can identify who the appropriate counselor to deal with your particular case as relates to SAM.gov or any other procurement issue to help you on your government contracting journey. If that is not us, please use that link for AppTech to locate your local, but you're welcome in this session for sure. We have one more session left that is for tomorrow in our 5-day series, a beginner's guide to marketing to government. I do recommend that you do attend because some of the things are not transparent, and Bruce is certainly a great guide through that process. So I appreciate everyone's time today, and make the most of your Thursday. Thank you. Bye, everyone.